Welcome to Beyond Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Petralis, and we are so excited for today's guest. Just to let you guys know, I got my COVID shot today, and I feel pretty good. You know, no soreness or anything, but my face is like on fire. I mean, that's the big one. I mean, you guys listening can't see me, but I look like Doink the Clown, the wrestler, right now. My face is red. I mean, it's crazy. But not to take away from our guest here, but I just want to let you know I got my first COVID shot. I'm so excited for today. I'm from Medford, Massachusetts. It's where I was born and raised. And I've heard the legend of this person for a very long time living in Medford. Someone who I've gotten to know a little bit before this previously, a tremendous person. There's nowhere you go in Medford that you talk about Medford High School basketball without mentioning this person's name. They're currently the head basketball coach at Brandeis University over the last couple years, and where they've had in 2018 an 18-11 record and winning their conference to get a bid into the Division III tournament, which was huge year one out the gate. In 2019, went 17-8, had a tremendous season, and obviously no season, this past season with COVID. Was a former assistant at Columbia University from 2016 and 2017. His second year became the associate head coach, which is the assistant head coach. And also had some stints at Columbia. I said Columbia, sorry, at UNH, at Dartmouth, WPI, and coached at Medford High School. So he's been everywhere as far as the world of basketball goes, and one heck of a coach and one tremendous person that I'm really excited to be able to have on here today. Ladies and gentlemen, from Brandeis University, Gene Bain.
How you doing, Anthony? First off, thank you so much for having me on. We have a mutual friend who connected us, and he's told me some great things about you, and obviously had a great chance to catch up with you a couple of days ago, and I'm really excited to be here and really excited to talk some hoops with you, and can't wait to do it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've been like, when we've booked you, I was like, oh man, I can't wait for this episode. So I am excited and ready to roll. So I want to pick it up for the audience because we're really going to tell a story today. I mean, you have a tremendous story and how basketball has been a big part of that story. That basketball has kind of always been the one thing that really keeps you motivated amongst other things, but basketball has always been that consistency. So, I said I live in Medford, and anybody who lives in Medford, when you talk about Medford basketball, the first name that pops up is Gene Bain. Your senior year at 95, I mean, you being recruited by D1 schools, and, sorry if I leave a few off, but just from talking, Providence, Drexel, Northeastern, GW, Pepperdine, and again, I might be leaving a few off of there, but, your senior year, you averaged 25 points a season, you won the MVP and the GBL. I mean, let's be honest, the GBL in the 90s was pumping out Division I basketball players at every school there. They were competitive games, tremendous games, some of the best teams in the state. Playing, in season, in league, like just unbelievable stuff. And you had an awesome senior season. I mean, talk about that a little bit as an athlete. I have a lot of athletes who listen here about being someone who's heavily recruited, the motivation that you had, and obviously just talk about that senior season.
Yeah, I mean, I think from day one when I started at Medford, obviously we had a, great coach in Tommy Reiser. We had a great assistant coach in Chris Bartley, who's now the head basketball coach at WPI. So we just had a great foundation to begin with since my first year at Medford High School. So, we went from being, when Tommy Reiser took over the program, to being not very good to my first year at Medford. We won 20 games all the way to my senior year. We were ranked as high as number 2 in the state. So it was something that, Coach Reiser came to Medford to build. He went to Medford. He understood what Medford, the community, and just the whole school was all about. And I was fortunate enough to play under him and have him guide me, having been a former Division I player at UConn himself. It's, hearing his stories and hearing his passion about the game of basketball really motivated me to, work on it daily. And, we had great players. It wasn't just me. We had great players, but we had great teammates, guys to this day that I'm still friends with. Those are the type of guys that we had on our team. And it worked out to a point where I had a tremendous senior year because of those guys and a lot of hard work that they put in. We always say our program is a year-round program. We literally didn't take any time off. When we started the season, we played in spring leagues, we played in summer leagues. We played pickup basketball during the summer after our spring league games. So it was a culture, it was a foundation that, obviously Coach Reiser and Coach Bartley had built. And, I was just fortunate enough to be part of it and very fortunate enough to take advantage of all the things that they were teaching me.
Yeah, and it's just great, to hear you talk about, I mean, just the type of coach that you are now, to hear like the guys that had effects on you as a player that motivated you to love the game. I mean, I think that's what's so powerful about coaching is everyone likes a game when they play it as a kid. But when you go to high school, you start loving it. It becomes like a passion. It's a lot different than, when you're younger. So when you meet people that make you fall in love with that, they always have a special effect on you. You had a tremendous senior season. You won the MVP of the league and the whole 9 yards. You were being heavily recruited. And then I'm going to kind of give you the floor here a little bit. This is, anybody who knows you, when they talk about it, it's how nice of a person he is, and then kind of talking about, what you're going to talk about. So I want to give you the floor a little bit to explain, just for young athletes out there to hear, this too.
It's funny, like in athletics and sports in general, we always talk about adversity, and obviously that we have to learn how to overcome adversity. And, that's something that I had to learn at an early age, kind of coming from where I came from to obviously playing the game of basketball. I always was taught that life ain't perfect. You're going to hit certain roadblocks that, you just have to figure out how to fight through and get through them and get to the other side of it. So my senior year, unfortunately, by the springtime, we're playing in the MIA tournament. I believe we were playing in the semifinals, and I woke up and my mother noticed just something, just funny about my neck. My neck was a little bit swollen, and my thought process then when she mentioned it to me was, listen, I've been in the weight room, I've been getting bigger and stronger, and she just stayed on me about it, and I went and got checked at the doctors a couple weeks later after we had played in our tournament, and we actually lost to South Boston that year, and obviously everybody was down. Everybody was sad about it being our last high school game as seniors. I got the news that, obviously I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease. So it was a major setback because, I don't think any young man, especially high school senior, envisions, his senior year ending that way. So, I kind of had to regroup and go through some, my family had to make some difficult decisions as to what the next step was. And, I was fortunate enough to have some great doctors. I went, had chemotherapy, had radiation for 4 or 5 weeks, was able to treat it, was able to, really, really endure some great friendships along the way, because I'm a big believer is when you're down, it's kind of when you see who your true friends are. And, every single one of my teammates, every single one of my coaches, and obviously my family, they all kind of rallied around me, and that gave me the strength and obviously, the mindset to kind of get through this. So it was a tough time for me. It was a tough time for my family personally. But I just, because of my parents and kind of how they raised me and the things that they taught me, I was able to fight through and get through that difficult time. But it was definitely a learning experience. I don't want anybody going through it, but to me, it made me a better person, and it made me a better basketball player, having gone through, that rough time during my senior year.
Yeah. And I mean, just you mentioning just going through that with your family. And I know kind of that came along with that a little bit too, was obviously some of these places that were offering, started maybe rescinding offers or not giving you offers. I mean, talk about that mentality, I guess, a little bit. Because for me, like, I could imagine just coaching 17, 18-year-old kids, but to hear that here you are going into 1 year thinking something and then graduating at the end of that year, and it's completely different.
Yeah, it was frustrating. It was sad because of all the hard work that I put in. When I picked up, ever since I started playing basketball at a young age, when I picked up the ball, my number one goal was to, obviously be a Division I player and be a college player. To have that setback was a major blow for me. So, I had a lot of schools that were recruiting me. Unfortunately, were questioning, obviously I don't blame them, but they were questioning whether I would get back to full strength, having gone through that difficult time. But, my family and my teammates and always believed in me, and I always believed in myself because of all the hard work that I put in. So, I had to stay focused. I had to stay humbled. I had to stay hungry because it was tough. I mean, there were tough, lonely days where, from a mindset standpoint, you just didn't know where things were going to go or where things going to get better. But the one thing that I always, worked towards was you know, constantly trying to get better every single day, constantly trying to better yourself. And that was my thought process as I started going through this. And I told myself, you know, when the phone calls were coming in before I had gotten sick, my phone was ringing off the hook. When I got sick, I mean, I might have had 1 or 2 phone calls of schools still interested in me. So that right there taught me a valuable lesson of, you know, I wanted to prove everybody wrong. I wanted to prove all those coaches wrong that didn't recruit me. But I also wanted to prove something to myself as far as, you know, being down, going through some adversity of bouncing back up. Because, you know, it's like I tell my team, you know, nothing's ever aligned perfect. You know, we're never going to go into a game where we make every single shot, but, you know, are we going to be able to get stops? You know, are we going to be able to rebound the basketball and make the tough plays? You know, that's kind of how life is. That's kind of how I look at life. Was I going to be able to bounce back and get my game back and be at the level that I was before I got sick? So, you know, I was a little disappointed at some of those schools that you know, I really was, you know, interested in earlier before I got sick. But I also, you know, you learn who you know, from a loyalty standpoint and from a friendship standpoint, you kind of find out who the real people are. And it was unfortunate I had to learn the hard way, but I was able to make some, you know, terrific friendships along the way and stay in touch with some coaches to this day that I'm still friends with because, you know, they believed in me, they trusted me, and at the end of the day, everything ended up working out for me.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really good point. And I think the number one point to anybody who's had success in anything that they do is about the people they surround themselves with. I mean, you went through a really difficult time and a really difficult, you know, a way that, you know, even you describing in words, people just can't really fully grasp what you've gone through. And it's tough. And I think what you learned and what you said was great. It's, you know, you kind of you learned a lesson in loyalty and about who's loyal to you and who's not. And I think that has now prepared you. And you mentioned like later on about how it developed you as a basketball player. And we're going to talk about that. I think that's something that really stood out to me doing my homework on you is just like your game elevated from there, you know? So I've heard the legend and I want the people out here to hear the legend of, you know, your workouts at Cousin Jim. Now this is a legend that I've heard. I'm just going to throw some of the things out there. Some of them could be false, but Cousins Gym is a gym for Tufts University. That's Tufts University's basketball gym. And they have a bunch of basketball gyms or a couple that are off of each other for people to play in and you know, open to the public at that time. I mean, I used to get in there all the time too, to play hoops. So you could get in there pretty easily. Right. So, you know, you had your Cousins Gym's workout. So this was when, you know, you had gotten sick and you had taken a year off of school.
Mm-hmm.
And in that year, you had, just from talking to you on the phone, you had mentioned that you wanted to begin to prepare your body again to get it back into shape. So I was told 8+ hour days at Cousin's Gym, you just took shots in the courts for a couple of hours. Then you would bring your brown bag lunch, you would eat, then you hit up the weight room, and then you would wait for the basketball team to come out, and then you would work out with the basketball team. And you did that 5 or 6 days a week. So I got 2 questions for you. One, I want you to see if you can clear if it's a legend or clear up all that stuff. But 2, I mean, the kids at Tufts must have saw you and been like, Coach, can we get this kid on our team? How do we get this guy on our team? Right. I mean, that legendary story. And I just want to put it out there because I've heard so much about it. And now I get to really ask you about it.
Oh man, every word of that story is true, man. You know, Tufts University is a big part of my basketball journey because, you know, unfortunately, after I had gotten sick, I needed a gym to work out. I needed a place to go. And while I was in high school, I used to go down and play with their guys because one of my former teammates, Brian Scarry and John Scarry, who's now the head coach at Medford, those guys were playing at Tufts. So, you know, after I graduated, I had to go full steam. I needed a gym all day, every day. And I would literally leave my house sometimes at 9, 10 in the morning, take the bus, go to Tufts. You know, I would get in the gym. There wouldn't be anybody there because obviously every kid was in class during the day. I would, you know, start with my ball handling drills. I would go to my shooting. Like you mentioned, I would take a little time off, eat a little food, go up to the weight room because I had to get bigger and stronger and get my strength back, you know, lift for another hour, come back down. By that time, it was about 4 o'clock, 4:30, and, you know, the team would be coming out to play pickup. And, you know, I jump into pickup games. So now we're playing, now it's 6:30, 7 o'clock. And, my day started at 10 o'clock. And now I got to find a way to get home. But I did that daily, every single day. The only day I probably didn't go down there was the Sundays because, Sunday was kind of the rest day, as we called it. But every single day I was down there, man. And I made friends with to this day, I'm still friends with some of the guys that played there. And obviously Bob Sheldon, the former coach there, and I became really close because they saw me every single day. And I did get asked, hey, are you on the basketball team? And I'd be like, no, I'm not, I am technically, because I didn't want anybody to get leery of why is this guy here every single day? But no, it was something that to me that to this day, I always say like Tufts University was a huge contributor to my basketball career because it allowed me and afforded me the opportunity to get in the gym every single day and just play. And that's what I did. And I had a chance to get stronger. I had a chance to get better during that time. And I was playing against college guys. At the time, Tufts was, nationally ranked. They had some really, really terrific players, on the team during that time. So it gave me a chance to play against older guys and stronger guys. And I was able to improve, man. Not a lot of people know this story, but I mean, Tufts holds a dear place in my heart as far as my development as a basketball player.
It's unbelievable stuff. And I think, listen, any coach that hears like, this is what he's doing to get better. I mean, I love that, right? I'm a teacher and I'm a coach, and when I coach, I stress that, like, what are you doing to get better? Like, hey, it's 9 o'clock on a, Thursday night and you're sitting there, what are you doing to get better? Or, what are you doing to get better to beat Bishop Fenwick or Austin Prep? Like, those are the things you like want to really dig into kids. And here you are saying like, this is where I want to be. I want to be a Division I basketball player. And I know I got to put in the work. And you spent a year doing it. Like, it wasn't like a couple of months and you got back into it. It was like a year of hardcore work that that was your full-time job. I mean, that was really your full-time job. So then you jump into going to a Bridgeton Academy. So you take a year off, you get into Bridgeton. Now, I mean, there's some pretty good basketball. I mean, you guys play some pretty good, competition. Where I talked about the GBL being great. I mean, the competition that you're playing is pumping, maybe a starting 5 or 3 out of a starting 5 Division I. So you come in and you're playing some pretty good competition, but also being able to now really play. And I'm just going to read off some stats that I was able to look up and kind of confirm with you. You average over 25 points a game. You were league MVP in this one season that you were there, single season scoring title. As well as, you played against teams that had squads. I mean, let's be honest, squads of Division I players. So again, here you are at the GBL, playing against competition and shining a little bit more than everybody else and doing the same thing at Bridgeton. I mean, talk about the development of taking that year off, coming into this next season that was maybe just different about your game that you just noticed.
The biggest thing that I noticed was, going to Bridgeton was just my maturity as far as understanding the game better. Because, obviously with high school to prep school is different than prep school to college. Everything changes, from speed to quickness to how big the players are. But everything was eye-opening. But because that year at Bridgeton, I was playing against guys that technically, like myself, were supposed to be in college. Back then, there wasn't a lot of guys that would do high school years at prep schools. There was a lot of kids that finished high school and then did a prep school year. Winston, MCI, St. Tommy Moore. I mean, all these schools were powerhouses. I mean, we're talking about 10 to 12 Division I guys on each team. I remember, pulling up to playing St. Tommy Moore, and their point guard was 6'5", and the center was 6'11". He ended up going to UConn. Terrific player. And I'm going, wow, this is our first game. This is not pulling up. Nothing against, Revere High School. It wasn't pulling up to Revere High School. We were playing, this was big time basketball. And I think what allowed me to be successful was because of all the work that I put in. It all started with, like we talked about earlier in the program, those hours down Tufts. Those are the times that gave me the confidence to know that I can play against these guys and I can play well, because I knew how much time I put into developing my game. And I knew if I did that, then I was going to have success. So that was my ultimate confidence right there. It was the work that I put in. And also we had a great team. We had really, it was guys that didn't even know each other. It was our 1 year there. So we had to mesh quickly. Our chemistry had to mesh quickly. And we had to go out and compete and play hard. And every guy there had a goal as well. And that was the other thing that was eye-opening, because, every day in practice, you're playing against guys that are trying to take your spot. That, if you don't come ready to go, you might not play as much, the next game. So that was the ultimate thing, man. Just the competition daily, the coaching, and just that culture, that environment that you were thrust into. I don't know if anybody knows what Brixton Academy is, but it's up in Brixton, Maine. It's an all-boys school. When you got there, I mean, you were able to focus on two things: your books and your basketball. You got up early, you went to get shots, came back, you showered, you went to class, then you did that all over again the next day, or you're in the gym shooting at night. So those are the moments that, gave me the confidence to know that I could compete against these guys and have success against these other guys that were ranked very highly during that time at prep school.
Yeah, I mean, it's unreal, and I think the whole maturity thing in sports in general, I think, when an athlete is able to mature at like a young, like I watch the Celtics, right? And I love Grant Williams. I think he's great. I think he's a great bench guy. I think he's, comes in the game and he just fills a role and he does it really well. And, I think when you play any college sport, doesn't matter what it is, or any professional sport, there's roles for everybody. When you come in and want to take that leadership role by the horn and say, hey, I'm elevating my game. These guys want to go D1 and play at other places. Like, I got to bring it every day. Having that mentality just makes you a better basketball player. Because in high school, you might have not had a complete team that's pushing themselves like that, like you do there, And so talk about then, you end up going to Northeastern, but I know when everything had happened in high school, Northeastern was a school that really kind of did stay in touch with you, or a school that was a little bit more loyal to you than maybe others. So, I wanted to kind of ask you that. I mean, talk about your feeling for Northeastern, as, you talked about loyalty and everything else earlier, to go and play there, and, they have a pretty good career there.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest reasons was obviously, Northeastern being in Boston, and at the time my parents were really keen on me staying close to home. But you mentioned, you hit the nail on the head, was the loyalty factor. Was, that year when I took off, I was still working out, playing pickup, and they were checking up on me. Jay Young actually recruited me. He's now the head coach at Fairfield University. And he would call me twice a week just to check up on me. Never really talked about basketball or anything. He was just trying to see, how am I doing? How's everything going with my home life? And those are the things for me that hit everything, because he was more concerned about me as a human being, as opposed to me as a basketball player. So I took value in that, and that stuck in my mind. So I knew, hey, this is a guy I can trust. This is a place where I wanted to go, and I wanted to kind of stay home and make my home, make Boston proud, and make people in Medford proud. So that played a huge role into my decision. And, I committed to them before I even went to prep school. And obviously when I went to prep school and, my strength came back, my phone again, obviously started ringing off the hook. But just like Northeastern was loyal to me, I was going to be loyal to them. So those calls never changed my mindset as to where I wanted to go. So I was very lucky to go there and have a good career there, and met some great people. And to this day, I'm still in touch with, and I was just so happy it all worked out.
Yeah, and I want to talk about your playing career there a little bit before we jump into your coaching career. But what's so interesting is I had a guest on a few weeks back, Chelsea Goldberg. She plays in the PWHPA, but she went to Northeastern, and very similar, had some really rough breaks. She committed to Northeastern. She broke one leg one year, broke one leg the other year, her junior and senior year. And they kept honest to her, to the offer that they gave her. And she still went to Northeastern, and then missed her freshman and sophomore and didn't play till her junior year, but they stuck true to their scholarship. And I find that amazing, that here's another story of Northeastern of just staying loyal to their kids and their players and their athletes. And good for them. Good for them to hear, two tremendous people, and to hear that they have that school in common. That's amazing when they're there for you at that level, like you mentioned. So let's talk about your career at Northeastern a little bit. And what I loved about it the most is that your freshman year, you won Rookie of the Year, right? And then that summer, leading into that summer, now, and I don't want to say this wrong, but you played in the Beantown Pro-Ams. Now, for our audience out there to understand this, the Beantown Pro-Ams were basically like summer basketball leagues in which professionals played. And a lot of the Celtics would play in this area, and this was before the NBA kind of created their own summer league. So you had some of the best talent in Boston, for all intents and purposes, playing basketball together in the summer, and you played. And I'll let you kind of talk about some of the people that were playing in this league and so on, but you also won MVP of this league. So you won Rookie of the Year, in Northeast. I know that you had a rough injury your freshman year, and then you redshirted, so it was like a redshirt freshman year. But talk about that. I mean, to me, that's the most mind-blowing thing about your playing career. Like, I'm sure you have your moments, but hearing that you played in that and was MVP not once, but 2 different times when you played in it.
The Nike Pro-Am League back then was one of the best, probably summer leagues in the country in terms of the combination of, Division I guys, overseas guys, and obviously pros. We had the guys from the Celtics at the time. Dominique Wilkins played with the Celtics. He was playing. David Wesley was playing. Dana Barros was playing. Austin Crochet was playing. Was a hell of a player at Providence. So we had, some terrific players. So what they did was, obviously the pros were pros and the college guys were college guys. So they would have a first team all league and MVP just for the college guys. And we had college guys, from Boston College to BU to Vermont, from all over. It was a great time because, basketball in Boston, especially during the summer, when you play whether it's outdoor summer leagues or indoors, there's a lot of people that want to, go out and support the community and support you. And, we would have really good crowds up there at Boston College during those times. And, I was fortunate enough, again, to wind up on a really good team with unselfish guys and guys that were all about the team. And, I was able, again, having been through all the things that I've been through, there was never any time where, after, high school, I stepped on the court where I was, quote unquote nervous, because I felt like going through all those things that I went through was preparing me for my basketball career. So those summer leagues meant a lot, because there were times that, I'm getting guarded by Dana Barros. He plays for the Boston Celtics. And, that was a time for me to show, hey, I belong. And I wasn't going to back down. And that was the great thing about that summer league, is just taught you to not back down, to play against different caliber players. It really brought out the competitiveness in you, because, again, you didn't want to be embarrassed either, because, hey, Dominique Wilkins could go down the lane and dunk on you if you're not ready to play. So, again, it was just another teaching moment for me. It was another teaching moment in my career where, again, you have to find a way to figure it out. And that's what I did. And I really enjoyed my years that I played in that league. I had a great time and I had some success.
Yeah, and I think, what I love about it is just kind of like what you do in scenarios. Like, you take situations and you just kind of like, you get yourself into a spot that you're like, I'm going to beat this, whether it's cancer, or I'm going to regain my game, or I'm going to go to Bridgeton and dominate, or I'm going to go to Northeastern and take off, or like everything that you kind of do, you're successful at it, but it's through the grind. It's through the grind of getting there, and you're not afraid to put in the grind work. And I think when you have the skill and you can go to that next level and don't have the grind work, everybody has the skill, right? The grind work is what kind of really makes the difference.
No, exactly.
Yeah. And so, obviously you played in Northeastern. I know you had a couple injuries. I know you had bone spurs, I believe, in your wrist, and changing your shooting style. That must have been difficult. Talk about that a little bit, because that's what another thing that I found interesting about you is, again, adapting and change, to change, and to see that, changing your shooting style after X amount of years of shooting the same way at a competitive level must not have been easy.
Yeah, it was just, basketball to me has always been an obsession for me. And again, I learned that when I was at a young age. I knew this is something that I really wanted to do. So anytime, adversity is thrown at me, I've always had the mindset of, I got to just figure it out. I got to find a way. And that was the same thing when I got hurt. I would just shoot, with my left hand, and try to get better at that. And then, obviously once I started developing, motion in my right hand, then I would put the two and two together. So it was nothing, that I knew I couldn't get adjusted to. It was a matter of just my mindset of just trying to figure it out and never giving up and, getting better at it.
Yeah. And just to kind of like wrap up your career, I mean, you were captain your junior and senior year again, which I think just shows the type of person you are. You're a leader on the court, you're a leader off the court, you're a leader by example. And I think that's pretty evident in everything that we've heard. And you earned all East honors, I think, right? You All America East honors. Yeah. So again, first team. So that's incredible stuff. Talk about that next transition, I guess. So you finished playing, and I know the path of the NBA is it is in all different directions or all different places you go if you don't get drafted. I mean, talk about your mindset a little bit, maybe after playing your career at Northeastern, as far as, continuing to play the game, or did you decide, I'm not sure what I want to do? I mean, what goes into decision-making like that, as far as if there's no NBA, what's that next step?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with me is, obviously having gone through some injuries, I tore my ACL as well, my wrist, I understood where I was at when I graduated. I understood kind of where I wanted to go. I think, you have to realize and come to when you reach a certain point, you have to understand who you are and what you're capable of doing and what you're capable of not doing. And I think by the time my career was done, did I still want to play? Absolutely, because I love the game of basketball. But I knew that, playing at that next level, whether it be overseas or anywhere else, it was going to take a tremendous amount of, physical tear and wear. And I didn't think my body could kind of endure it. So, and I knew I loved the game of basketball. So I ended up just getting into coaching right away. Because I always knew that basketball was going to be part of my life one way or the other. I hate to say it, but that's kind of what my life was all about. Ever since I was young, it was all about the game of basketball and the love of the game and the passion and the competitiveness of the game of basketball. And that's kind of what I wanted to go towards. And so I ended up going right back to Medford High School and coaching with Tom Reiser for a couple of years. And then obviously after that, I knew I wanted to get in the college game. I was fortunate enough to go work for Chris Bartley at WPI for a year. And then kind of, from after that, kind of, transcended to, me going to the University of New Hampshire, working for Billy Arian, who was a great influence in my personal coaching career, and then working for Paul Cormier at Dartmouth. So I kind of knew the road that I wanted to go to. I had a vision of I wanted to coach college basketball, and I didn't want to waste any time, trying to play and trying to prolong my playing career, because I was satisfied with my career and kind of where it led me to. So I was very satisfied with that, and again, it gave me an opportunity to still be involved in the game in terms of coaching and trying to help young men, become leaders and become better basketball players, because I felt like I had a lot to offer to the game of basketball after I was done playing.
Yeah, and that's what I think stood out too, right? Just the fact that your story, your grind, like there's no player that can look at you and be like, okay, coach didn't put in the work that I put. Like, you're that coach that put in all the work that you say you need to put in to be successful, right? Mm-hmm. So you mentioned a couple places that you stopped off at. And again, WPI, the year that you were there, they were 24-5, a berth to the Sweet 16 in D3. Unbelievable. You were at UNH for 7 years. You recruited 3 1,000-point scorers there. At Dartmouth, you recruited back-to-back Ivy League Rookies of the Year. And, Columbia, like I said, you were promoted to an associate head coach. So I won't go into every place that you were at, but I'll ask you just a few questions highlighted off of that I'm just curious about. I love the recruiting aspect of any sport. I think recruiting is awesome. I think it takes special people to recruit talent, because you have to have a tremendous eye and a tremendous knowledge of the game. Talk about when you recruit, because you've had great success. What do you look for in an athlete, both maybe on the court, but also off the court? What are the big selling points for you?
I think the big thing, you'll hear this from probably a lot of coaches in terms of what they value, what they don't value. The number one thing for every coach that I've worked for, and then I kind of carried over to now being a head coach, is character. I believe that, you win with character. Obviously, you need talent, but I think that when you have high character guys that understand what, your end game is, what you're trying to accomplish, you end up getting through tough times and getting through adversity. And there's no team that's perfect. There's no program that's perfect. You're always going to hit roadblocks. And if you have those kind of guys, I feel like you could win more than you would lose, and you can have great success. So that's kind of the main thing now as a head coach, that, when I walk into a gym, the first thing I notice is, the character, the body language, the willingness to interact with teammates, picking teammates up, just little things like that. Those are the qualities that I want for the guys that we recruit at Brandeis.
Yeah. So, the other thing that I'm just really curious, and I want to jump into Brandeis and really get rolling. What did you learn differently as a coach than when you were a player? Like a player, you played the game, you competed hard, but then you went into the college world for a while, 14 years there. What did you learn as a college assistant coach that got you prepared for a job like Brandeis?
Just everybody's different. Players, everybody, coaches, everybody. You have to learn how to adapt to everybody, to me as a coach. The players shouldn't have to adapt to you. So there are guys that, you have to figure out how to motivate them. It might be pushing them a little bit. Some guys might take, just grabbing them to the side and just talking to them. So those are all tricks of the trade that I learned along my journey as an assistant coach, that I said, when I become a head coach, I'm going to try to combine all the good things that I learned from all the guys that I work for into becoming a very successful head coach. And I've taken all those things, to mind when I'm coaching constantly. So that's something that I learned as soon as I became a head coach, that every player is different. Everybody's motivated different. You as the head coach have to figure out how to motivate each guy to get to the level where everybody's at the same page and trying to win games. That's the one quality that I learned early as a head coach.
That's awesome. So, now you're at Brandeis. I know you got the job. I mean, it was kind of quick. It was like bang, bang. Like it was right before the season started, and you took over a program that, in the win column hadn't been doing well over the past few years. And within that first year, you were able to get them to an 18-11 mark, including the berth to the Division III, tournament. I mean, Talk about year one, getting a job like that, not really having the recruits that maybe wanted to bring in, and how you just change a culture quickly.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the great thing about, obviously the Brandeis situation is I'm from this area. So coming back in Columbia, I was very comfortable with my surroundings. I wasn't walking into a situation or a place where I didn't know anybody. So that was one. Two, the players, the kids that I have from day one, when I set foot onto the practice floor, they were all in. And I'm serious. I tell people that, it's very rare that you see that in the game in the college, whether it's Division I, II, or III level. All the guys that I had they just wanted to play. They wanted to get better. They wanted to be coached. They wanted to be coached hard. They wanted competitiveness. And that's why I think that translated to wins. We ended up winning 18 games and, going to the ECAC tournament and winning that. And we kind of started building our culture then. So, that was, to me, that year will never be something that I take for granted. That I tell those guys, from last year that I coached, this will be the best year of my college career. Whether, even if I went to coach in the NBA or wherever I'm at, that one year, my first year at Brandeis, the collectiveness, the players that we had, the coaching staff, just everything. I was lucky, man. Like everything kind of fell into place and we were able to have some success. Because those kids, they wanted to be coached, they wanted to be there, and they wanted to win. And I think that's why we had success my first year.
So talk about your style of coaching. I mean, what type of team is Brandeis? Are we a run and gun team? Are we a man-to-man team? Are we going to throw the kitchen sink at you? I mean, talk about when you come into a program. I mean, obviously you learn from a lot of different coaches and you took everything from different programs, but how did you now kind of adapt it to your style of coaching, to maybe the talent that you have? I mean, how do you balance all that?
Yeah, I think when you're a coach and you're coming into a certain situation, you have a mindset of how you want to play. Every coach will tell you, hey, we want to run. But I think you have to be, honest with yourself, depending on what personnel that you have. Yes, that was my mindset. I wanted to get out in transition. I wanted to pressure full court, but we didn't have those type of players when I started at Brandeis. We had guys that knew how to play the game. that could shoot the basketball, that were really unselfish. So, we were a half-court team, execution team. We're very willing passers, very unselfish, and we wanted to slow the tempo down because we didn't have a lot of bodies. I think my first year we had 9 to 10 guys, so it was really difficult sometimes to go into games saying, "Hey, we want to run." I knew I want to run. That's the style I want to play, but I had to be honest and real with myself in terms of trying to put those kids in the best situation to be successful. And I felt like if we could just slow things down and we could execute, I felt like we could have success. And we were lucky enough to do that, my first year. As we move forward and we start getting into recruiting, now we want to recruit guys that, that can play that style of, getting up and down the court, pressuring a little bit more, pressing a little bit more. So that's kind of where we're headed as we move forward here. Because now we have a lot of bodies. We have older guys that understand the system. We have older guys that want to run, that understand what it takes, that you have to get stops on the defensive end in order to run. So we're moving towards that in the next few years because, we have to recruit the personnel to be able to do that. But, my first couple of years, we were a half-court executing team. We run when we have it. We're all man-to-man. So, we've kind of built the foundation. Now we kind of piece it piece by piece in terms of kind of where we want to go with it as far as style of play.
Yeah, here man-to-man, I'm a football guy. I'm defensive coordinator, and if it was up to me, we play man-to-man all day, every day if you have the personnel. So, and I think it's a mentality. I think basketball, it's the same way. When someone's just in your face constantly, everywhere you go on the court, as a player, it's just like, oh, it's nonstop. It's relentless. Like as a player, it phases you. So you mentioned the recruiting aspect of it. How does it work in the basketball world? When you evaluate your roster, are you trying to recruit every position every year, or are you trying to say, okay, we have no depth at this position, we're gonna have to recruit a few guys here? I mean, and on top of that, how many guys do you get? Like, I just don't know. I'm not too familiar with how many recruits you would typically bring in as well.
Yeah, at the Division III level, it varies because, you can have 20 guys on the team. I know for us at Brandeis, our magic number is, primarily 15 guys. So we've kind of been recruiting based on how many seniors we graduate. Then we would bring in, if we graduate 5 guys, we most likely bring in 4 to 5 guys on that particular year at different positions that we've lost. So that's kind of how we go about doing it. And, sometimes though, when you see a guy that's, has great character and has a lot of talent, you can't pass him up. So sometimes we might take a third guy at say the small forward position, because we believe that guy, if he's able to sacrifice a year of playing behind another guy, we think he's going to be a great player. So I think that's kind of how we go about doing it, as far as our recruiting goes. And, my assistants, Sam Rubenstein and Sean Tabb and LJ Harrington, those guys do a tremendous job of, developing our guys and then, evaluating them and figuring out what do we need as these guys move forward in the program and graduate. Like, what's the next guy that's going to fill that void? And that's why I think I was blessed and lucky to have those guys on staff, because they do a really good job of evaluating guys and bringing them in, year out. And hopefully we can continue that model going.
And I'm sure in this area, you probably have a lot of like a lot of people in the high school, the world of basketball, that you can check conferences out or teams out or see a player or what they think. I mean, do you have a lot of connections like that still?
Yeah, being around this area, I mean, I went to every single camp up this way and played AAU up this way, recruited up this way. So I do have a lot of connections as far as the Boston area. And then Brandeis being obviously a top 30 university, the academic component and the basketball component in terms of the league that we're in, the combination, it just helps, tremendously. And we're able to keep some of the good kids locally, able to keep them here at Brandeis. So, but the great thing about our situation is we're able to recruit nationally because of our league. So, we have the best of both worlds. We can recruit local, or we can go out, out of state and try to recruit. So I think that's the great piece about being at a place like Brandeis, just being able to kind of recruit, internationally, globally, because we're such a great academic institution.
Yeah, and I saw, like, when I looked at your roster, it seemed pretty balanced out of state, in state. It was like, it was pretty 50-50, it seems. So it seems you guys do a really good job of kind of, hitting up the area, but also finding talent outside the area, which is awesome. I'm always curious about this too. I mean, COVID-19, right? I mean, I've had high school coaches on here, boy sports, girl sports, and I just find it intriguing how because I'm not in the coaching world anymore, so I would have no clue how to handle this. And I think it's tough, but what do you do in a situation like this when you can't really be on the court? I mean, basketball is the one sport, like when this first came out, I'm sure, like sweat, touching people, playing. I mean, that's like, you just can't. So what do you do as a coach to maybe keep your team engaged or keep your team together? I mean, what were some things that you kind of maybe came up with during that time period?
Some of the things that we did, we had a lot of Zooms, early in the process when this first thing happened last year. We had some field session via Zoom to keep our players engaged in terms of the basketball side of things. And we had some mental, some Zooms where we focus on the mental aspects of things because, this is a hard time on everybody, and, these kids, they came to college to play basketball. Obviously, it's unfortunate, this pandemic has happened. So we had to figure out a way to kind of try to balance and keep them engaged. And I thought we did a really good job of just constantly staying in contact with them. I was reaching out to guys, just checking in. Then I would reach out and, I would talk about a game last year that we had and, what should we have done different, kind of get their takes as well on the situation. So I think that's the one thing that we did a good job of, just keeping them engaged and keeping them involved, from the time this thing went down to now. And, we were fortunate enough at the beginning of the fall to practice for 6 weeks. Then the kids went home for a couple months. They came back and we practiced for another 6 weeks just to keep, developing them. And that's the one thing that we really focus on with this pandemic was the individual development of each guy. And I think that was a huge bonus for us being able to get out there and do those things. So, the great thing about my situation, I got great kids and I got a great staff. So it just makes my job easier when you have those things. And I think that's one of the ways that I'm really lucky, to be here.
I mean, talk about the squad you have. I mean, first, my question is for your seniors. I mean, if they're not playing, do they technically still have a year of eligibility to play?
Yeah, with the rules, the NCAA passed the rule where every guy at every level is getting an additional year back if they want it. And that was the great thing that we did at the beginning of this. We were constantly communicating with our guys as to, kind of, hey, which way do you guys want to go? If our seniors, if you guys want to graduate, well, my job is I want to start helping you get a job. And those are all the things that's part of our program in terms of our culture. So, but all my seniors, 5 guys, they said, Coach, we want to come back. So then we had to figure out, okay, a couple guys, what classes do you need to take to keep that balance of not graduating early? Then we had some guys that wanted to go to grad school. Okay, what grad program do you want to try to get into in order for you to play basketball next year? So, I thought we did a tremendous job of just staying on top of things. And, it's a credit to our kids, man, how much they love the game of basketball to want to come back that extra year and compete, because a lot of our guys could go out and get really good jobs right now. And, they want to be part of this. They want to compete and they all want to come back. So I'm happy to have them back. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, I think it has a lot to do with their leader too. I mean, I think that's a big selling point as well. So talk about your squad. I mean, what do you have? What do you have for talent there? I mean, I was reading some stuff. I saw some players, won some awards, done some things. I mean, talk about the type of team you have right now there.
We have a well-balanced team. We have some athleticism. We have guys that can shoot the ball. And we got some younger guys right now that, I'm looking forward to watching them develop. We got, one of my guys, Chandler Jones, about a 6'7" forward. He's a first-team All-League player last year in the UAA. He averaged about 15 and 7. And we had Colin Sawyer, who, in all my years of coaching, I've never seen a player improve as much as he's improved. When I came in my first year, he was a sophomore, he couldn't dribble the ball. Now he's at the point where he's coming off ball screens. He's hitting step backs. He was a first-team All-League player last year after not being mentioned on any coach's poll as far as All-League mention. So we have guys that, man, they remind me of myself. I think that's kind of why, we kind of bonded early, because we got a lot of self-made players. a lot of guys that, once I got here and we started talking about kind of where they wanted to go with basketball, that really bought into the work ethic part of it, of getting in the gym and developing themselves and getting better with their ball handling and shooting. Because at this level, we can't work with the kids as much as the past where I've coached. So once the season's over, I can't get in the gym with them and work and help them get better. We have to show them what they have to do, and they have to want to do it. And I think that's where we're fortunate, because we've had guys that want to do that because they see the end game. They saw the success that we had our first year and our second year. Now they want to take it to another level and amp it up. So, and those two guys, those are our two leaders. Those are the two best guys. And I think everybody else is kind of following their lead. And we have other guys that are kind of just waiting to take off and kind of waiting to fill their spots once they graduate.
That's awesome stuff. I love it. I love it. And it's what I love about it is that you're so engaged in your plays. It's not just to hear you say that you're helping them. I want to help you find jobs. Like, you're taking a job and being like, okay, I'm coach. We're not doing the on the court stuff now, but we're going to do all the off the court stuff, and committing to that. I mean, I'm sure in some of those kids being there and committing to your program, those are the things you mentioned that are going to be true. And that's the culture you want to build when kids feel like that it is their family and they can come back to you and they can depend on you. I think that's what really winning's about. I mean, I think that that's a huge component that sometimes gets overlooked because people just think talent beats everything, and it's not. It really isn't. So, all right, here we are. Obviously you just talked about your plays and some great players that you have and some of these accolades that they have. I'll give you 15 seconds right now, Coach, to pitch Brandeis basketball. Why coming to Brandeis or playing basketball at Brandeis is the right spot for them.
Mm-hmm.
I'll set a timer. I'll set a timer for you. We'll give you a true 15 here.
All right. Well, number one, it's one of the best academic schools in the country. And being in the city of Boston, and as we know, Boston's a great city. And basketball wise, we play in the best, league in Division III. And I think if you decide to come to Brandeis to play, by the time you graduate, you're going to be a great player, but more importantly, you're going to be a great leader and a great person, a great husband, a great brother. That's the end game for me, is seeing these guys develop. And those are the guys that I want in the program. And if you come to Brandeis, I promise you that's what you're going to get.
All right, listen, I can go back and get my CAGs there. I got a few years of eligibility. Like, I'm in. I am in. Listen, I'm 5'7" on a good day, but I'll play tough D. So
we'll take it.
Just letting you know.
We'll take it.
So great pitch. I want to go. But in all seriousness, Coach, just coming back to the last couple of questions that I typically ask a lot of my coaches that are here. What's your advice to young assistant coaches out there? I mean, you grinded 14 years of the college game, a few years in the high school game, and now you're a head coach. I mean, you learned a lot through that process. What is your advice to young coaches out there?
You got to make sure this is something that you really love, because there's going to be a lot of sacrifice that you had to make, in terms of, your personal life, your social life, your family life. You have to decide if this is something that you want to do, because I'm a big believer is, if you're going to do something, do it at 100%. Whatever you choose to do, you have to give it your all. And the other advice I would give is, make sure that when you decide that you want to be a coach, make sure you learn the entire game, whether it's recruiting, coaching X's and O's, whatever it may be. Don't stop learning. Always try to get better. And that's something that we talk about to our players about, but also we talk to our staff about as well, is continue to always grow and learn the game of basketball, because none of us have all the answers. If you think you have all the answers, then you're in the wrong sport. So that's something that we're constantly trying to do, is constantly trying to improve as coaches. And I feel like that's something as a young coach that you should always strive to do, is just get better at your craft and work on it daily, whether it's watching film, getting a couple guys, working them out, constantly trying to improve your craft as you get older and getting into this thing.
Awesome. And you kind of hit upon my last point, but you mentioned sacrifice. I mean, talk about the sacrifice. I mean, in that 14 years of being a college assistant coach, 12 or 13 of it, you weren't around this area. So, your family and the people that you've known that have been here, whether it's in the coaching world or family or whatever, you're away from them. So, I mean, that's a huge sacrifice there. I mean, talk about sacrifice at the level that you're at, and what it takes to get where you're at.
Yeah, it's tough because, obviously a lot of people's, livelihoods depending on, what you're doing. And when you're an assistant coach at the Division I level, because, the end game is, yeah, you want to get great guys and build them up and mold them, but you also have to win. That's just the business. So that's why you have to be willing to, for example, I'll never forget this when I was at Dartmouth, might have been 2 or 3 days after Christmas, or might have been Christmas morning. I had to fly to the West Coast to go recruiting, a couple of days after Christmas. So, not being around your family, obviously, those are huge sacrifices. And every coach that, whether it's basketball, football, baseball, whatever, they're coaching at this level, every coach will tell you the same, that, you have to learn how to deal with it. It's just the thing that comes with the territory of being a coach and constantly being on call and constantly being ready to kind of do your job.
It's nonstop. I mean, it's nonstop. And I think that I've said this on a few episodes, but I've created this podcast because I don't think people realize the world of coaching and how much sacrifice it is and time and investment, and not complaining about it, but that's what the job is. And I think people need to be reminded of that a lot, and how you care about the whole kid, not just the athlete and the person that puts the product on the field. And that's where the great coaches are at. Those are the coaches Absolutely. That can balance it off really well. We're going to jump into our last segment. It's our 2-minute drill. And basically, I'm just going to fire a bunch of rapid fire questions at you pertaining to your sport. I do get a challenge flag if I want to challenge something or have you explain it a little bit more.
Okay.
Absolutely. And vice versa. If you want to explain something a little bit more, you can definitely throw a challenge flag as well.
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Let me get my timer set. And here we go. Biggest coaching victory you've ever had in your career?
Winning the Big Four last year at Brandeis.
Okay. Most important position in your offense?
Point guard.
Okay. Player that you recruited that you were shocked that you actually landed?
Alvin Abreu, University.
Okay. I'll let you explain that a little bit more because I am curious.
Well, Alvin was a young man from Lynn, Massachusetts. In fact, I just talked to him today, believe it or not. It's a small world. Alvin was a local product, but he ended up going to school out in Chicago for a year and kind of felt a little bit out of the territory. So, we would stay in touch, but he was getting recruited by some other schools, but he was playing at a really, really good prep school where he was playing with a lot of Division I guys, so he was getting seen quite a bit. So, I just happened to develop a great relationship with Alvin, a great rapport with his family, and when it came down to it, it was the spring, which is like the last period date, he committed to us at New Hampshire, and he had a great career there. He scored over 1,500 points, and not only that, he's just a tremendous young man, and I was shocked that we got him.
Yeah, and I just want to add one thing. I love your social media, by the way, on Instagram. Of just so much of it is just filled with you and ex-players that you've gone and see games, or you've gone to a game together or whatever. I just think that stuff's really cool, and again, just shines the light on you that I think you deserve. I mean, you're a great guy, man. All right, back to the 2-minute drill. One word that you would describe your coaching style on the court.
Challenging.
What would your player say?
Challenging.
In Medford, when you played for Medford, who was the one team that you just wanted to beat so bad every time you played them?
Everett, man. Everett. We hated them guys.
I love it. How many threes did you average in? How many teams? Let me say it again. How many threes did you average in a game at high school?
That's a great question. In high school, I probably took 1 or 2 a game.
Wow. So see how much the game has changed. How crazy is that, right? And last question. Who's a better shooter, you or Mike McGlynn?
Mike McGlynn, for sure.
All right. That's our 2-minute drill, Coach. You've survived it. I just want to say, in all honesty, I really appreciate you coming on. I mean, you were really a hero to like a lot of young kids out there when you played basketball in Medford, and the person that you are and what you've become and the success that you've had. I'm really honored to have you on here, being someone from Medford who teaches in the school system, who has been running camps there and been involved in the community for a long time. There's not a place I don't go that I don't hear your name, and to have you on here, I'm just honored. I really appreciate it.
Nah, man, it's the pleasure's been all mine, but also, thank you so much for having me. I'm fortunate enough to be involved in coaching and try to help guys realize their dreams of, being the best basketball player they can be. And again, I'm just very fortunate to be in this position that I'm in right now.
Well, yeah, it's all from the hard work and dedication that you've put into everything you've done, man. So again, we are honored to have you on here. Tremendous guest today. And from Beyond Podcast, I'm your host, Anthony Petrellis, Gene Bain, Brandeis University. Thank you so much. Till next time.